All right, so part 2 is going to come up here. You'd have to watch part 1 to see what's going on with this 98 Dodge Ram, where it has a crank no start. The guy was driving it one day and it just died. Part 1, I pulled the computer off the vehicle, showed I could talk to the computer off the vehicle but not on the vehicle. I showed the waveform, how it looked good off the vehicle. And now part 2, I'm showing on the vehicle how I can't talk to it and the waveform looks bad. So we're just going to jump right into it, and you guys can see what we actually found on the vehicle that was taking this entire computer down, where we couldn't talk to it or nothing. All right, we're actually at the truck. If you look here, don't worry about that wire. We're going to solder that together and these together. Connector 1, 2, and 3. C1, C2, C3. There's your not CAN wires, our SCI transmit and receive wires. I unhooked them, cut them, I'll solder them back together and string tube them. And when I did that, the computer still would not come to life. So it still wouldn't come to life. So what I'm doing now is I have my Autel Ultra hooked up with the J box, BCMI actually, breakout box there. No comm, key on, engine off. I don't even have my engine light on. So if you remember from part 1 of this, when you talk to a computer on SCI, that's when this waveform should start moving. So I'm trying to talk to it. It goes to 4.5 volts, goes down to 1.5 volts. It doesn't look right at all. But it talks to the, I can talk to the computer off the vehicle, but not on the vehicle. It'll just sit here and do it. Sometimes it'll go to 4.5, sometimes it'll go lower. Let me switch this to, that was 6. Let's go to 7. Oh, my 7's way high. 4.5. What is this thing doing? Let's go 20 volt scale. So there's, it's going to 9 volts. No, it's going to 10.9 volts to ground. On. Sorry, my filming's all over the place. It's cold out here. Almost got hit by an old lady driver driving over here. Nothing against some women, but God, they cannot drive. I'm on pin 7. And look at that. 7 is almost 11 volts. Battery voltage is 11.8. With it all hooked up. But even if I unhook the wires, it's still, when I unhook SCI transmit and SCI receive, it still won't even, well, obviously it's not going to talk, but I won't even start. Unless it's got to get a message from the transmission or something. Let's go back to 6 while I'm trying to talk. Go back to 6. See what it does. Goes to 4.5. Now I wonder if there's a sensor or something that's bringing this whole module down and it won't talk. I got one of my earlier videos back in the day, well, a couple years ago I guess, had a crank sensor that was bringing the whole vehicle down. Maybe that's what's going on. Well, I think we did have RPM signal. So let me get some more data and go from there. Before I do that, let me go back a page, the screen. You can look right there, it started going high again, but only to 4.5, same thing. So yeah, let me get some more data. All right, so after we unplugged, I've been unplugging a bunch of sensors because I've seen in other stuff, I've done other videos where I've seen a crank sensor on a Jeep take it down. I've seen a transmission connector take it down. So basically what I'm doing, I'm unplugging all this stuff, right? And nothing is restoring COM. My service engine light never came back. But if you look at my schematics here, after going through all these connectors, 1, 2, and 3, connector 1, pin 4, sensor ground, I cut that wire on the first connector there. Just not hooked nothing up yet.
Okay.
One sec. I cut that wire, and now my engine light stays on the whole time, and I got live data. I'm talking to it. So my SCI bus is good. 4.5 volts going down the ground. Now on pin 6, let's go to pin 7. Do that again there. Pin 6. Takes a little bit to register. So pin 6 is good. And then pin 7 is good. Just like the part 1 video I did on this. Well, it ain't perfect on that one, but that's just SCI transmit and receive. You can see our blue strobes there. So now, of course, if I play this again, when I exit, oh, come on. There's nothing now until I go to, like, say, erase it. Then it's going to talk again. Well, I'm on a really fast scale. Let me slow this down. Right there. We got a lot of stuff unplugged. Something's obviously shorting this computer out inside. That's why it worked on the bench. Doesn't work on the vehicle, and that's why it's screwing our SCI bus up. So if I go to live data, watch this, it'll start talking. Boom, right there. That's pin 7. Now let me go to pin 6. Boom, right there. That's perfect. All our stuff's back. So now what we need to do is look at where this sensor ground goes, backtrack it, find it, put everything back together and fix it. All right, can't remember where I left off at, but we're looking for splice 118 because that's circuit K4. That's the sensor ground, C14. Well, it goes in engine coolant temp, intake temp, all these sensors, right? Long story short, we removed all these. I got the camshaft removed, no change. I removed the crankshaft position sensor and then restore COM to the vehicle. So if you come up here, I unplugged the crankshaft position sensor wire in the back there. Then I have COM, which I do now. I plugged it back in, and you could tell somebody's been back in there because there's some wire splices. I plug it back in, look at my current cam and crank counts. It's not going to start because, watch this. I got cam counts, but no crank counts. So it's not going to start. We're not going to get injectors and ignition and all that. So there, and you could see from our earlier part of the video that our scope pattern is good now. So looking back, long story short, from this video, part 1 and part 2, the crank sensor was internally shorted, or the wire harness going to it, which basically shorted the computer, and the computer protects itself, but you could not talk to the computer on the vehicle. So we started checking CCD bus, SCI bus, off the vehicle was good, put the new software in it, all that stuff, unplug sensors. It's a shorted crankshaft position sensor. Once we put a new crankshaft position sensor in it, we'll run it again, clear everything, and that'll fix this 1998 Dodge Ram with the 5.9 All right, so you can see the end of the video showed a bad crankshaft position sensor, but at the end of the video I showed you that there was no crankshaft position counts going on. Well, looking back, what I did is I plugged a crankshaft position sensor, which that's what restored COM because the sensor is internally shorted. Well, I plugged it back in, and it didn't show that it was shorted. It could still talk to it, and there was no crank signal. Well, it's because when I unplugged it, one of the wires broke because there were 3 wires. It's a Hall effect sensor. Somebody spliced them in before. So when I unplugged it, one of the wires broke, which if it didn't break, it would still have no COM if I plugged it back in. So I just wanted to clarify that.